Welcome back. It's December 24. It's wet, it's windy in the UK. Hands are hurting, so I'm doing smaller stuff at the moment. It had been suggested to me that maybe I do an instructional video on dovetailing. The trouble is YouTube is flooded with that. But what there isn't a lot of is inlaid dovetailing. I didn't invent this. This is something from Jonathan Katz-Moses' channel. I learned 5 or 6 years ago, and it's something I have actually used actively in a project. I've actually done ones where the inlay comes through the mitred joint at the top. I'll put a picture of that here. So what I've decided to do is actually just do a direct instructional video on this style of inlaid dovetails. Let's just talk about dovetails. Mitred dovetailing, miters at the top and bottom, nice for boxes. Standard dovetails though. And then there's inlaid dovetails. And there's a fair few out there showing this style, where the inlay isn't all the way around, it's just on the outside, as you can see there. Nice joint, not quite as hard as this. This takes a little bit more, because as you see, the difference. The mitre is just following the profile of the dovetails. I like it more. So this is where we're going with this. What we're going to start with is just the general materials. Got some walnut. The piece is actually cut in sections, so I'll go through that in a minute, but that's just going to help us have a nice joint with the grain flowing around the corner. And for the inlay, I've got some curly maple. Don't stress, I'm not wasting this. I'm literally going to take probably 20mm off of this, but you'll see that in a second. So that's where we start. Let's have a quick chat about tools. I'm not going to go on a lot about that because you'll see me using them, but let's have a quick chat about what we're going to use. We've got saws. The only saws I'll actually be using is my, 20 tooth Veritas fine dovetail saw. It's a rip cut, and the coping saw. Nice fine blade on it. Put them aside. For the dovetails themselves, you could either have a sliding bevel. You can set up your 1 in 6, your 1 in 8. I'm actually just going to use 14 degree, which I believe it comes in at a 1 in 4. Why? Because I want to. That's all. There's a lot of information out there about what dovetail to use for what 1 in 8, 1 in 6. But for general boxes and stuff, it's not a strength thing. It's something. It's aesthetical. How does it look? And I think 1 in 4s, although they have their function in small, thin material that's being dovetailed, it's just going to make a much more pronounced dovetail. So I'm going to use that today. Going to need squares. Well, 1 square really. I did make some squares recently. My small square, I'm not actually quite sure of its current location. I don't believe I've lost it, but it's here somewhere. But for now, I'm going to use some squares. Small ruler. Doesn't have to be one of these overhang rulers. With my hands the way they are with arthritis, it's just easier for me. It sits on the wood nicely. You'll see it happening. For this, 2 marking gauges is handy. Just so you don't have to keep. You don't have to, but 2 is handy. Marking knife. Fresh blade. Marking out walnut isn't the nicest thing. So if you, it's a chalk pencil. It's a Taylor's chalk pencil. Great for walnut and normal for the maple. Chisel wise, I'm only really using 3 sizes of chisels. Use my Japanese chisels today. Why? Because I want to. I am using 1 of my Veritas chisels. The reason being is the Japanese chisels don't really have a beveled edge. You see this distance here, 2.5mm. That, for when you're actually trying to get into dovetails, the corners of dovetails, the Veritas ones go down to a fine, perfectly fine point. Makes them sharp actually. So I've had a few cuts from this, but you see the difference, and you'll see when I use this. That's the only reason I'm using this today. Now, again, you don't have to have these chisels, these expensive chisels. Axminster tools and I think Narex as well. Their bevel edge chisels have a tiny raise on there, so perfectly adequate. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Trusty mallet, love it. As we're doing the completely hand tools, we need a plane that can cut completely into a corner, a rebate style plane. So I plan to use my skew rebate plane. You could use a normal shoulder plane, depending on the thickness of your rebate, but I'm going to use this. There's lots of inexpensive rebate planes out there. It doesn't have to be expensive. Again, I have a shooting board plane. You don't need a shooting board plane. Again, there's so many videos out there of you being able to make a shooting board with just basic materials. Really, it's not necessary. I've got it. I'm going to use it. And that's kind of it. I don't believe there's anything else. If there is, then we'll address it as we come to it. Let's crack on. Okay, this isn't a video about dimensioning wood, so we are starting at the point where we have got pieces of wood that are already square. If you want to do dovetails that are accurate and look good, everything needs to be square, unless you're purposely making dovetails that aren't square, but we're not going down that route. It has to be square. Otherwise your marking's going to be off, everything's going to be off. You need to start with square material. Okay, rant over, but we have square material. All I've done is cut the piece in half, and I want the pattern, I want the pattern of the grain to actually flow around the wood, flow around the corner. So all I've done is mark my face edges. Again, with any of this woodworking that we do, you've got to mark your work. You've really got to mark your work, just so you're clear, because when you come to glue up, okay, this dovetail joint here is it's one joint, but when you actually come to make other boxes, if you haven't marked out, I promise you, you're going to get confused and it's going to be a nightmare. So, clear markings. References. And because I want to make sure I do the two correct edges, and the chalk comes off really easily. Pencil on wood really doesn't come off easily, so if you are using pencil, don't push too hard. But chalk actually, it's nice to use. So we're done with that for now. We are going to start off with one side. The thing with inlaid dovetails, look, this is what we're actually making today, this one. I did this recently for a short video I've made for the same subject, but it was pointed out to me that actually a full video could be done from this, so actually I'm quite happy to do another one. But as you'll see, we're going to start off with a normal dovetail, but the marking out is a little bit different. We need to make allowances for the inlay, but essentially what we're going to do first with one piece, this side, I'm going to take the left hand one, we're going to mark out dovetails and stuff. But the first thing we have to do, and I get questioned about this a lot, it fits this side, yeah, I get questioned about this a lot, and when I made this video, I think I had an ongoing debate with someone on the video on why the rebate is necessary. The rebate is necessary for this inlay to not be visible on the inside. If you don't do this, it doesn't go together properly. Yeah, but this will become apparent as we go along. So let's start marking out. What we're going to do is mark out our rebate. Now, to do this rebate, the rebate on this one needs to be the actual depth of the wood we're cutting. So normally on dovetails, you'd set your marking gauge up like so, yeah, because they're the same thickness piece of wood. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. But also, because this is a rebate plane, I'm going to set this up in the same manner. Okay, so, but to do that, I'm going to loosen off. I'm going to set my marking gauge as well. Excuse me. I'm going to set my marking gauge as well to exactly the same height, so that I've got this to do the rest of the shoulder markings. Okay, but first things first, let's get that on there. Get that down nice and flat, like so. We'll do that. Okay, and then we'll do exactly the same. Okay, so there we go. Now, this is where we decide the actual thickness of the inlay. On this, I've got it set to 3mm. Because the wood I'm using, I've taken it down to 18mm. We've got 100mm wide, but with 18mm, 3mm inlay is actually quite a nice dimension. And it actually gives you a bit more material to play with. So, starting off on the left-hand side, we are going to mark the rebate. Now, the rebate needs to be on the inside, not the outside your show face. It needs to be on the inside edge. Okay, so what we're going to do is mark out nice and gently. Remember, you don't want to, there's no need to try and do this in one pass. It'll be inaccurate and it won't look good. What we want to do is try and do this in 3 or 4 passes, progressively making the line nicer. So nice and gentle. Bit harder. So let's get my thumb in the way now. Nice deep score. Okay. What we need to do also is just a small one on the edges. Just a small one, not all the way across, because we're just doing this rebate for now. Although actually you can go all the way down on this one, because we're cutting normal dovetails, that will actually be cut off. So let's just do that there now. Okay, now what we actually need to do is mark where the rest of it's going to be. So this is where our second marking gauge comes in, and I'm going to set this to 3mm. I'm going to use my calipers to do that. You can use anything you want, use a ruler or anything. I'm just going to use my calipers. Just the wrong one now. So it's not critical. It's bang on 3mm. There we go. So 2 marking gauges. That's our shoulder line for this piece. This will change later on. Again, I'll show you. But that's our 3mm. So what I'm going to do there, again, nice and gently. We're on end grain this time, so end grain markings can close up. It's a bit like a end grain chopping board. It's kind of self-healing. Let's get that nice marking on there. I'm going to then come down the sides, remember. Okay. And then mark out your waist. If you don't mark out your waist, you're going to end up cutting the wrong side of a line eventually, and it's going to ruin a joint. So get in the habit, mark everything out. Okay. And that's the next step, cutting that rebate. Okay. Right, I'm going to use this vise. Is it a shoulder vise? I think so. Really like it, really handy. So, all set up. This plane has got a scoring blade built in, but I'm not using it. It's not on most planes, so to show all you need is a rebate plane. Okay, you could use a hand router plane as well. You could do it with chisel, but I've got a block plane that is a rebate plane, so I'm going to use it. So first pass, make sure everything's lined up. That's good. Pushing in the fencing this way and making sure it's nice and flat down. I'm just going to give a push and make sure we're getting a proper full cut. That way hopefully we are cutting at an even depth. We'll check that a bit later on. We're just going to slowly do passes. Making sure you're keeping the fence in place. This needs to be accurate. This is your shoulder line. If this is out again, it's just going to cause loads of gaps, loads of problems. So take your time. Okay, I'm going to check, make sure we're cutting evenly all the way across. Looks like we are. Okay, just keep going. Just take your time to set these things up and they work really well. Because we marked it with a marking blade, it'll actually start to break off and we'll actually see when we're approaching our line. I'm just checking now to make sure we're still even. Yep. Maybe take a little bit off the start. Make sure everything stays tight so you don't go out. Keep going, nearly there. Almost there, almost there. Just see the lines there. Do it slowly now, make sure everything's not out of adjustment. Still cutting nice and evenly. Just want to lose that little lip caused by the blade of the marking gauge, so that we've got sharp corners. A little bit more. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, okay, great. We're going to do rebates later on the other piece, but it's going to be different, so we don't have to worry about losing adjustment on that now, as long as we're happy here. Looks good. Okay, let's take that out there, and now we can start marking up our dovetails. We're going to mark out the dovetails. Now what we need to remember here is we're marking out these dovetails. Okay, the original dovetails. We're not marking out with the inlay. So whatever size dovetails we work out we're going to make, we need to make sure we allow for the inlay. So the initial dovetails, because we've got a 3mm inlay, the initial dovetails are going to be overall 6mm smaller than you would normally mark them out. So we need to take account for that when we're marking them out now. So, where's my marking knife? There it is. Again, use a marking knife. We're going for accuracy here. So, I've got my ruler. Again, any ruler will do this. Personally, for me, it sits on the top there. Look, it's just one less thing, one less problem. Make sure it's, oh, excuse me, it's measured from the reference edge. There we go. Now, I've already worked out my dovetail spacing. I'm going to have 5mm in the end, but I need to allow for the 3mm inlay. So actually, I'm going to mark 8mm. Okay, I'm going to do exactly the same on the other end. Okay, and we need to mark a 10mm gap in the middle. This is 100mm long, so I'm going to mark at 55 and 45. Excuse the shaking hands. Okay, that's our dovetail spacing for this round of dovetails. Essentially what we're doing here is we're cutting 2 sets of dovetails. So let's now just get this marked. Okay, put my knife in the mark, bringing the square up to my knife. Gentle past the first one. Get that nicely marked across. Again, for the next mark, this is really important that this is perpendicular. If it's not, you're not cutting dovetails, well you are, but you're cutting wedges. that when you push them into the pins, it will split the wood. So make sure that this is perpendicular. It's really important. With anything like this, your marking out is everything. If your marking out isn't accurate, I promise you the joint won't be accurate. Or any of your work has to be marked out properly. Take your time. I'm going to have to come around this side because I'm right-handed. So, okay, that's that. Now, like I said, I'm using 14 degree, I believe it's 1 in 4 dovetail marker. You can mark this out with a sliding bevel, but I'm just being lazy. I've got it, I'm going to use it. So, we need to mark those going down. However, we don't know how far we need to mark now. We're using the marking gauge to mark shoulder lines, but on dovetailing, the outside, you don't need to score all the way across on the actual dovetails, because all you're going to have to do in the end is plane that down to get rid of the scoring mark. So I just try and keep it marked where I need to mark it. So the first thing we're going to do, actually the first thing I'm going to do is move over here onto a more sturdy surface, more suitable surface. Like I said, we're now going to mark the actual physical dovetails, but we need to know how far to come down. So what I'm going to start doing is just making, with the marking gauge we've got set to our shoulder line that we've done for the rebate, we're going to mark roughly where those are going to be, just like so. There's going to be one in the centre, and there's going to be one at the end again. And what this is going to do is give me a bit of a visual reference now. All I want to do, get this on a, again, decent surface that I can do this. I'm actually going to come back to this vise. It's probably going to be a long video, by the way, but here's what it is. Right, let's open this right up. The advantage of this vise is you can obviously go this way, you can turn it around, but also you can very easily come in this way as well. So yeah, there's lots of uses. So let's just get it in there. Make sure you can see what I'm doing. So I'm putting my knife into my line mark, moving my gauge, marking, what should we call it? My dovetail marker across till it meets, and then I'm using my knife to gently score a line down to almost where the shoulder line will be. Again, a nice gentle scratch first, then each time a little bit harder. Now, move straight across. I can do this one as well, same way. Still see properly? I'll give you a clearer view once I've drawn these on, marked them on even. First one, nice and gentle to make sure it doesn't wander. Get that initial scratch in, then you can push harder. Okay, nice clear markings. Now, do the same. Oh, I always get confused with this. There we go. Right, same thing on this side. Trouble is I'm right-handed, so this makes everything more difficult unless I come in like so. Holding the knife like this helps. For me anyway. Be careful with these. These are razor sharp blades. Nice fresh blade in there so you're getting lovely clean score lines. Okay, let's move it across to this one. Then we'll do some marking out. Mark out our waist. So gently, first pass. And we're trying not to score past the shoulder line either, because all we're going to be doing is marking the wood that's going to be visible at the end, and we don't want that. We want nice clean wood that we don't have to sit there planing loads off of. I probably will, but okay. Let's now take that out of there. I'm not going to mark the back. Normal dovetailing, I probably might mark the back if I want to make sure I'm definitely cutting and following the lines. However, because we've got the rebate, it makes it difficult marking out, and it's not too much to worry about. So let's get all the waist marked out. And now that I've actually got the dovetail lines in place, I can come in with the marking gauge to get the actual shoulder lines, the final ones. Get clear marking so I know where I'm cutting. It's really important. got to keep these shoulder lines consistent for no gaps in your dovetails. Okay, how's that look? Oh, you can see that quite well actually. Okay, so it's quite clear where we're cutting. Time to cut dovetails. Right, this isn't a lesson in sawing, but it's the same as cutting any dovetail normally. I'm using my Veritas 20 TPI rip dovetail saw. It's a bit blunt actually, but it's fine for what we're doing here. Now, cutting the dovetails. What's rocking? What's making that noise? That is fine. Cutting the dovetails, the most important thing first is this line across here, that you cut this perpendicular. If you cut it wonky, all you're creating is a wedge. Okay, so you've got to really create. So the first thing you're doing is a push saw, so from the outside edge, and I'm remembering I'm cutting in the waist side. Okay. So my thumb as a marker. Okay, so I've now got that groove. It's my starting groove. Now what I'm going to do is tilt my saw backwards and try and concentrate on this line for now. I was keeping it in the curve cut. And careful not to come down too far to the shoulder line. Now I can cut the back side, and as I've already cut here, it kind of keeps it straight and guides it. Nice loose grip on your saw. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have to clean these up, but realistically, they'll need a bit of clear up, but that's what chisels are for. Moving on to the next one, we're cutting the other side. Remember now, we're still in the waist. So trying to stay to your line in the waist side. Don't breach your shoulders. Now, using the pre-cut as a guide. Making sure you don't breach your shoulder this side. Okay, next one's, again, cutting the waist. Checking the back. Yeah, one are definitely going to need some clean-up. It's good. Show you my methods. Right, last one. Do my best to cut as close to my lines as I can, to avoid less work with the less work with the chisel. Okay, they all look nice and perpendicular. I'm happy with that. Now, whilst it's here, let's remove the centre pinhole. I used New Concepts, or again, don't need to. These are quite expensive. Just for me, they're nice and light, and that means my hand doesn't get tired if I'm doing lots of work with it. So we're going to slide that straight down as far as we dare to close to the line, shoulder line, and keeping it as parallel to the bench as possible. Twisting to get it nice and flat, making sure again we're not breaching our shoulder line there. Nice long pulls, not putting too much pressure on. Making sure again you're not cutting into past your shoulders. There we go. Again, some people remove that different ways. Some people just chisel it out. It just seems easier for me just to take it out in one wedge. Let's cut the rest of the shoulders off, and then we'll do some cleanup. Right, let's get these shoulders cut off. Close to the line as I dare. Careful as you approach the dovetail. Okay, whilst we're in this vise here, I'm going to clean up my shoulders here with a chisel. Nice sharp chisels. Keep your fingers behind the blade. You won't cut yourself. What I'm going to do first is just gently work it back. Okay, keeping an eye on my lines. In an ideal world, I'd have sawn directly to that line. I'm not that consistent. What I don't want to do here is breach my shoulder lines. All that's going to do is give us gaps. Okay, might use a smaller chisel here, just so I can come in here, work on the back here without worrying about breaching the front. Okay, and then I can use this as my guide. Okay, nice. Corners of dovetails, really important. Get them in there, get clean. So that's good. I'm just going to give this face of the dovetail a slight clean up, but to do it, I'm flipping over. I'm going to move it into my advantage where it's comfortable for me. Move stuff out of the way so you're not tripping up on stuff. At this point, I get my square. I can remember where I put it. It's here. I'm going to be checking. Is there somewhere I could take it away from? And I can see here, just this back edge here slightly. So what I'm going to do, again, sharpen your chisels, sharpen your tools. Sharp tools are safer. It takes less effort. All I'm doing here now is cleaning up, making sure that this face is all straight edges, not rough, and that they're to my knife lines, which they are. That's good. And I'm going to come in here now and clean that up again. Just a small amount. There, all gone. Sharp corners, good. Rounded corners, bad. The other side, like I said, I do recognise this is going to be a long video, but it's a process that needs to be followed. I'm not trying to take it all off in one go, working way down, creeping up on it. That's it, my shoulder lines. You can see just there, that's my marking gauge lines. There we go, clean up the face of this dovetail. See, this one I went off my line, so I'm going to clean that up now. Okay. If you're struggling to cut this with your chisel, chisels are blunt. Go and sharpen them. Okay, there we are. We've cleaned up our two edges. Now we just need to clean up the centre pin. I'm going to start off by chiselling back. I've left a couple of mil. I'm not going to try and take that all in one go. Standing this way on, I can hold the chisel like a pen. I'm going to get that halfway. Try and take off half the material. Use my mallet. Just give it one strike. As you see. Now I'm going to go again, but a bit further back, halfway between the line and where we are now. Holding it upright. Not going all the way. Now, clean out that waste. Now we're just going to do that final one. Yeah, come into that line. Holding it as vertical, 90 degrees as possible, perpendicular. See properly. We're going to go fairly far down. Now this, as you notice, hasn't gone all the way to the corners. There's a reason for that. Remember what I said about these chisels? It's not a bevel edge, is it? So I'll use my Veritas one here to clean those corners up when we get there. I'm going to flip it over, do the same on the other side, but making sure I don't go all the way through. The last thing I want to do is break out this side. Okay, a little bit more cleaning up there, but we're not going to do it now here in this situation. We're going to come back to the vise again, hold it in place, and I can clean this up properly. Do that first, and then I'll come and clean up just the insides of these dovetails. Right, so cleaning up the centre and working from the outside. This chisel is a good fit, but it's too much now because of the bevel. So I'm now going to switch to a bevel edge chisel. Like I said, you can get these Axminster tools chisels are brilliant. So are Narix. All of these, you don't have to spend a lot of money, but you want a small, fine bevel on the side of the chisel. Cutting away here, you can almost go a little bit lower if you want, but just do not breach those shoulder lines. Okay, turn this round. Coming from the other side. I'm not overly happy with the shoulder line from the rebate plane actually here, so I'm just going to get my larger chisel. If you haven't got a nice wide chisel, you actually find a huge amount of uses for it. So I'm just going to clean up that shoulder from the rebate plane. This bevel chisel allows me to get completely into these corners. And like I said before, clean, sharp corners, interior corners, exterior corners, just clean and sharp, perpendicular, and you'll be good. Again, if your chisels aren't cutting properly, sharpen your chisels. Soul destroying watching someone struggle with blunt chisels. Right, so that's all the shoulders cleaned up. I just need to clean up the insides of these dovetails now, and then we're there. Now, cleaning up these lines is a good technique to this. So I'm going to put you back in this way, give you a good angle at seeing this. On these dovetails, this is fine. This chisel will fit in here. You'll see later on when we get to doing our inlay, this gap's not as big, so we're going to have to be more selective of our chisels. Now, what I want to do is I've got this extra material here to remove. But what I'm going to do is place my chisel here in the marked line, but have it protruding slightly from the top. What I'm going to do now, keeping this nice and perpendicular with nothing here, I'm going to rotate my chisel upwards so I can actually follow the line across the top. Okay, really controlled, effective way. Come from this side, get it in that line that we've already marked. We're trusting our markings. Trust your marking out. Okay, nice. Using a bevel edge chisel to get in there. Remember, chisel work doesn't have to happen with both hands on the chisel. You can have a hand pinch right up, and that gives you an enormous amount of control. Last thing you want to do now is slip. Okay, and that looks just about right. So now start marking out the pins. Great. Last thing to check is on our shoulders, are we completely hollow? If this is rocking nicely, not in the centre, then we know we're nicely hollow, and our dovetails will fit all the way to the shoulders. Okay, good. Right, next. So the next part, marking out the pins from the dovetails themselves. Normally, normal dovetails that don't have this rebate, without a jig it can be, you've got to make sure that you get this lined up properly, otherwise your dovetails aren't going to work. However, we're in the advantage, we've got a rebate. So actually this now setting up, the rebate works to our advantage a lot for this one. Yeah, so we're going to take advantage of that. Back in the vise. Again, marked out my reference edges. Yeah, got them here. Can't see it properly on the walnut anymore. Let's remark it. That's the one thing about the chalk. It comes off easily, which is actually quite nice. Yeah, so that's our reference on that. We're going to be setting these up like so. Okay. Marking knife. We need to make sure this stays up against our reference edge. So here and here need to be lined up nicely. Might just use that to get it into place. Pulling it this way, so that's there, that's there. That feels good. So with our knife, these blades, Stanley, I think it's SM1s, 01s, there we go, SM01 blades. Quite long, they're firm. What we want to do is get into the corner, not because we've got a double bevel blade. So we need to get that point into that corner to get an accurate mark. So I'm not laying it flat. I'm actually coming in at 45 degrees with a gentle scratch first to get that initial scratch in. Now what we don't want to do is move this. If this moves, we're going to have trouble coming back to this exact position. So we're taking our time to make sure nothing gets nudged or moved. Really important. You don't want to misscribe either, because that line will show up on your inlays, because this is the inlays we're doing now. Okay. Coming the other side. Gentle on the first one. Last one on the inside here. Okay, let's move that off, and you can see, hopefully, can you? Yeah, our scribe lines. Let's get it back in. Well, firstly, what we need to do is mark the shoulder line for these pins. Now, it's not the same shoulder depth as this one was. Remember, it's this depth. Okay? So the shoulder is going to be a lot shallower. Let's get it measured and we'll get it marked out. But set up exactly the same way. Holding that flat. Making sure that's flat. Locking that one off. Locking that off. And that is our shoulder depth. Okay? So we're going to get that marked on there. But remember what I said about on the walnut ones. I don't want to have scribe lines on this that are going to be playing off, because they're not going to, it's going to be so difficult, because this is going to be the inlay. So we've got to be really careful here, marking out with scribe lines that we won't have to remove later. Okay, just going to kind of crack on with it a little bit. What I need to make sure, so I know I'm marking in the right places, I'm just going to make some small down lines first. I'll tell you what we'll do. We have to remember, we don't cut the outsides on the pins, we only cut the insides. So I'm just going to put a mark. So I've got something when I'm drawing these lines down, so I've got an idea of how deep I'm going. Okay, let's do on the other side as well. Okay, not that clear, is it? Anyway, there's probably going to be some moaning that I'm wasting a perfectly good piece of curly maple. You'll see later, but we're going to use about 20 mil of it, so there's no waste. Right. Marking knife. All I want to do find my line. Remember, these are pins, so they're not dovetail angles, these are perpendicular lines coming down. So I'm just doing it a little bit to see how far down I'm coming. Find yourself on that one. Shake your hands today. There we go. Again, put your knife in the mark. Bring the square up to it. Nice gentle line. First one. It's quite good because you can actually see where that shoulder line is going to be, so you know you can come down and stop in time. Okay, there's that. Next one. The more you cut dovetails, the quicker it will come. And even these inlaid ones, because essentially, like I said, all we are actually doing here is we're cutting dovetails twice. There's not a lot of room to fix errors. The good thing about these little projects is you get to sit down whilst you're doing them. In chronic pain, I'm exhausted at the moment, so these small projects are actually very good for me. Keeps my mind busy. And my body wants to be left alone. You have to remember again that these knives have bevels. You have to take that into account when you're marking out. Because a bevel, like I said, this one has a double bevel, and that could be the difference of 1/2 mil. And a 1/2 mil gap is not what we want. We don't want gaps. We can hide gaps to a certain extent, but we don't want gaps. Okay, that's there. Now I'm just going to finish off the shoulder lines again so that they meet up, and then we have to remember to mark out our waist. It's a really important thing, the marking out. Like I said earlier on, you've got to mark out, and then you've got to trust your marking out and stick to your marking out lines. If you do that, take your time, then your dovetails will fit nicely. And I could just clean up, bring those lines now, just so I've got clear marking. Something I like. Knife in the mark, bring your square across, just continue that line. They're okay. Let's do that. Give that a little. Okay. Okay, that's that. Okay. I think I'm fussing now. Pencil, where have you gone? Oh. Ah, there we go. Right. Remember now, we're removing the pins, so it's the inside. So we're cutting this side of the line. Mark your waist, trust me. Okay. Now, the wider side of here, of the dovetail, is the face side. This is going to show. Now, I'm using a fine tooth saw, but I don't want any breakout on the outside. So, because this is a push saw, I'm going to have this side facing me. Okay, so I'm going to get it in the vise, get it set up again. Let's get you back in a decent angle. No. Right, in the vise. Now, same as before. Make sure you're cutting inside the waist. The curve of your saw up to your line as close as you dare. Start on the back, pushing, laying down, getting that line established across the top. Now, this time we're not tilting for the dovetail, we're just cutting perpendicular down. It's just as important to take your time. Same principle as before, I can cut this one before I worry about cutting the back. Then I've only got one line to worry about. Watching again, shoulders, don't breach your shoulder lines. Okay, same for the others. With the pins again, my sawing isn't efficient, it isn't brilliant 100% of the time, so I actually generally like to give myself a small amount left over and fit the dovetails to the pins. Now, whilst we're in this position, again, coping saw, get those out. Be more careful with this, because what you've got to remember is these aren't perpendicular lines now. So as you're cutting across here, if you keep this perpendicular, you're going to end up lobbing half of your pin off. So you've got to remember that. Just come down again, almost to the bottom. Get that saw turned. Yeah. Making sure we're keeping away from the shoulder lines. As you know, I like to trim those back with a chisel. It's much neater for me. My sawing, like I say, isn't that reliable. Checking constantly at the back that, again, you're not going through your shoulders. Now, this is when you've got to remember, you want to start tilting your saw. Now, don't discard these, put them aside. We'll use those. Okay. Obviously, the closer you go to the lines here, the less chisel cleanup you're going to have. But if you breach those lines, you're having gaps or you've messed up. So I prefer to chisel back. Maybe my sawing will be good enough and accurate enough one day. Again, keep that. No, it's all taken out. Again, some people chisel that out, whatever floats your boat. But for me, that is so much easier than having to sharpen my chisels after bashing God knows how much maple. Right. Clean those up, then we'll come back and clean up the shoulders. Not the shoulders, do the shoulders now, then we'll come back and clean the pins up afterwards. Right, back over here. Same as before. And these are the biggest pins. Are these the biggest pins? No, the next ones will be the biggest pins, but these, I'm not sure if we can actually get in there with that, can we? No, it's too big. So we have got to use the next biggest. Is that the next biggest one? Yeah, okay. Right. So we are going to work our way back to this line. I've got about 1.5 mil, so I'm not going to take this all in one go. I'm going to work our way back in the same way we did before. So what you'll notice though, again, we've got to take into account the angle of the pin here. So as we chisel in, we can't chisel straight down when we're close to the edge. We need to tilt the chisel. Otherwise, again, we'll start lobbing into our pin. We don't want that. Okay, so I'm removing about half the material. One whack. Got to be careful, I nearly breached my line there. Don't have an in-between chisel. So I'm having to use a smaller chisel. Have I not got a bigger one? Maybe I have. Right, bigger chisel will make this a bit more accurate because the chisel won't have to be placed as many times. Now I'm going to go actually into my line now. One whack, just to get that line. Move the chisel over as far as you need to. Same again, okay? Do the same the other side whilst I'm there. See how I'm tilting the chisel as I come down that side of that inside of the pin. Yeah, not going all the way through. tilt the chisel to accommodate the pin. There we go. Flip it over, same on the other side, but we really need to be careful we don't blast through, break out the other side. That can't be hidden. One, now I'm going to come back to that line. Put the chisel in the actual knife mark so I know it's in there, nice and perpendicular. Get a whack, just get that clear line. Now I'm going to establish the rest of this line. There we go. Now, remembering it goes this way now. Okay. Again, be careful. I nearly breached my shoulder line there. Got to be careful. Take my time. Yeah. Come back, re-establish this line. There we go. Okay. There's still material on the inside. We're going to deal with that back in the vise now. Okay, but our shoulder lines are nicely established. Okay. Right. Now we need to make sure that the centres of the pins are either flush, perpendicular with the shoulders, or actually hollower. Hollow is all right, not too much, but it's okay. I'm not even going to touch the lines. I've established those. You don't need to go there now. We're just dealing with the inside. And remember, with a chisel, you don't have to push. You can slice. Corners aren't an issue now with these chisels because they're not beveled. However, we do want to start removing some of that so we can start cleaning these up nicely. Not coming through. I don't want to blow out the other side. So I'm not going to do those yet. Let's just quickly hold this onto there and have a look. I'm going to look down this way. Can you see gaps? Hopefully not. And it'll give you an idea of the ones that you need to trim. The last thing you want to do is go in and trim all of these now out in one go, because the chances are is maybe only one or two of them need trimming. From what I can see, this one is actually okay. I'll have to clean it up in there, but I can see that's definitely they're going to have to be trimmed back. So just going to have a quick tidy up in there. Just get those corners in there as clean as possible. Come back the other way to get those. But this one needs a slight trim, as I did before. There we go. Tilt the chisel forward. Okay. Don't worry about that. We'll come to the rest. Slice it out at the bottom. Okay. There we go. Same here. I know this one's definitely going to need doing. I'm in this slot here, the mark, so now I'm just following along here by rotating the chisel. Yeah, I'm not going to do that one yet. I'm going to wait till I'm round that side. There we go. Same on this one, last one. Tilt the chisel. That way you're slicing that line. Okay, trim that out. Now turn around. Check your view. Yep. Okay. From the other side, clean up those shoulders. The inside, not the shoulders, just it's the shoulders, isn't it? Tell this chisel sharper than the other one. So I want that for marking these. Now, same this side, get that in your line. And we're just rotating up We don't really want to alter this, so we need to be careful. If you want to clean up the insides here, but you don't want to risk breaching those, you use a smaller chisel. Yeah. You need to remember when cutting dovetails and pins, these need to be perpendicular. If they're wedges, if they're not completely perpendicular, if they're wedges, when you push that dovetail in, you're going to split this wood apart. Take your time, make sure it's all clean. Once glued up, these edges are never going to be seen in here, so you can do what you need to do to get a nice clean joint. You want the joint to be tight, but not so tight that when you push it together it splays everything out. Okay. Not the best job in there, but again, no one's going to see it, so I don't need to worry too much. Yeah. Inside. Get those corners clean. And the people I see, the dovetails won't seat, won't go all the way. It's because these corners, they're not clean. There's little stubs of wood that they look like nothing. I promise you. They're what's stopping your joint going all the way home. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So let's have a little offer up and see how it looks. Right. So it's going. It's nice and flush, but it's a bit tight for my liking. Now, this side's absolutely fine. I can feel that it's going in. I think I just need to make some adjustments on the insides of these here, so I'll do that now. I'm only going to do one of them though. I'm not going to do both. I'll do one and then test fit it. Right. Getting there. Small clean up, I think, of this face, and I think that'll be it then. Just a small face, not a lot. Get that glued. Arguably, slice that back a bit. That might have been a mistake. Just want a small clean up in there. Right, good. Last thing, just make sure that's low. Okay. Right. It's time for some glue. Okay, just some type 1, 2. Okay. Standard gluing up of dovetails. The chisels. Squeeze out is our friend. Backs of the dovetails, these shoulders. Let's get these glued, and then I'll have a break. Okay, so See how this goes, shall we? Try and squeeze that home with a clamp. Now, that is where I said don't get rid of these, didn't I? I just want to trim a little bit off these, make them a little bit thinner. So I'm going to put those like so for clamping and get rid of this glue off of there, because the last thing we want to do is glue these to it. Stick that on there. It's going to clamp. Okay. I want to squeeze out. That's what I'm aiming for. Here we go. That's what I was looking for. Wipe the excess glue off. Not too badly. Okay, that's there. What I'm going to do quickly, it doesn't matter much, is check that it's actually square. Yep. And we're just going to leave that to glue. That's all glued up, and all it is at the moment is a normal dovetail joint with quite wide pins, but that's literally all it is. And that's the difference here between this style inlaid dovetail and the one we're doing. Okay, what we need to do now is, because we've inlaid that and because of that rebate that we cut, we now need to cut this off at the junction here. Okay, so all I'm going to do is, because I'm going to do this on the bandsaw. Oh, I said hand tools, didn't I? Okay, so we're going to cut this by hand, because I said hand tools, no bandsaws allowed. Right, let's get the shooting board out. Didn't think about that. There you go. You see that? Oh, this is blunt, this saw. Okay, this saw is blunt. There we go. Good. That saw is so blunt. I need to deal with that. Not today though. Okay. This is what we're left with. You might be able to see where we're going now. Let's take it out. Let's clean this up. And then we can talk about what we're left with here. There we go. This one needs cleaning up. This needs planing, but this is end grain, because obviously it was going this way, so I need to clean this up with a plane, really. Okay, it's good. Just need to clean up any protruding parts. Put that together. I think it's slightly off. This one's right, but I think this might have been a bit too tight, so it's wedged out a little bit, I think. Doesn't matter. Clean that up now. I think that needs a bit more in the centre there. Let's do that now. important this is flat, because this is going to be going into the shoulders of the next pins. Need it to be flat. There we go. Right. I think this will only be one pass anyway. There we go. Don't want to go too mad, because we'll be cleaning this up at the end. Right. We need the shooting board just to clean this end up. Now, we do need to square this up. Let's just make sure I'm using the same reference edge as last time. No, so that's it. Okay. And you see it does need squaring up. So we're trying to take off the absolute minimum that we need to. Point out the shavings. Quite satisfying. There we go. Nicely trimmed up, nice and square. Remove the minimum amount. Now ready to go. Okay. Okay. Got that all trimmed up. That's back square again, and you can see what we've created here. That's why we needed that rebate, that original rebate that we cut, is so that we can put this inlaid inside here and it doesn't show on the inside. Okay. Now, what we need to do now is remark our dovetails, but with the inlay. Okay. And we have to remember that our inlay is also in here, so our shoulder line will be 3 millimeters up from there. So the first thing we need to do is mark our shoulder line, our new shoulder line. Okay. So all I've marked there is 3 mil, just about 3 mil up. This is actually a bit bigger, I think, so I'm just trying to match it. Now I'll set my marking gauge up to that, which actually, it's not far off actually, look. So actually I think we'll leave this exactly as it is. And this will then be, for our new pins, this shoulder line here will be for the, we'll use this for marking out the rebate on this as well. Okay, again, that's another important step. We've got to do another rebate. But first, I want to give some sort of indication of where here I need to mark my dovetails. So I'm just going to gently score for now. Just to give myself an idea. Come round. Not the shakes today. Nice gentle pass first, a bit more afterwards. Again, this is end grain, so if we're not careful, that can close up a bit and become less obvious. So for now, that's all in. I've got my shoulders marked. Now I just need to mark my dovetails again, same as I did before. Let's do it. All right, so all we're doing now is marking dovetails again, but we're marking them 3 millimeters in. So once again, I've got a marking knife. Lay this on the end. Use that to get us nice at the end. So, okay, right, 3 millimeters off. So I'm just going to use that to mark the 3. Hands aren't working brilliantly today. Okay, let's get a square. What have you done with that, for goodness? Oh. I'm a liability. What have you done with that? Oh, for goodness sake. Right. Keep your workspace tidy. Okay. As we've done before, it's dovetail, so it's this perpendicular line across the top that's important at the moment. You lot make this awkward. Right, you just have to trust that I've done this. I haven't got enough dexterity today to be worrying about showing you me doing this bit. I'm just going to leave that. Right, let's get the rest of the dovetailing marked out. Now, again, coming back to our 14°. And what we're doing, again, same as we marked out the dovetails last time, we're just bringing them down from our markings there. Now, okay, let's do this one first. Knife into the score, pull the marking gauge up, and again, I'm just trying to mark almost down to where my shoulder would be. So what I don't want to end up doing is leaving a score in this. That'd be obvious. Okay, that one goes over there. Need to come around the other side to do that. There we go. Remembering I'm not going all the way to this shoulder. I'm stopping about here. I've just moved that, so I've got to get that back in place. Obviously, if you're left-handed, you'd be having trouble doing this side. Okay. We could actually mark them down on this side, and actually let's do that. Let's do that. Just give us an idea of what we're actually aiming for when we're cutting. Can't see that very well, but trust me, it's there. Very clumsy today. Okay, let's mark out our waist. So, these are dovetails, remember, so this is our waist. And this is now really, really important that we cut in our waist. Otherwise we're going to end up with thinner inlays, and it needs to be as even as possible. So, let's cut dovetails again. So, same drill as before, cutting the dovetail side, not the pins, so we need to remember that this cut across here is really important that it stays perpendicular to this face. Move tools around. Right, same as before then. I start on the back corner, because this is a push cut. Getting as close to the lines as I want to, but I'd rather clean this up with a chisel if I'm honest. Now we've got to remember now, we are actually not... Are we rip cutting? I suppose we are. It's definitely not cross cut. Is it? No, it's not, no. If your saw is sticking, beeswax or wax, anything, just promise you. Concentrating on this first line. Remembering the shoulder line isn't all the way down to the walnut. this here, I've got to cut as close to the line as possible because I've got to be able to get a chisel in there to clean this up. And obviously if my sawing was that perfect, I wouldn't need to get a chisel in here to clean these faces up, but my sawing isn't perfect, so I'm going to need to clean it up. So I need to leave enough space that I can actually get a chisel in there for in the first place. Maybe less vibration in here as well if I had this lower down in the vise or clamped this way. Getting that oscillation through the wood wouldn't happen if I had it round the vise the other way, but this just makes it a lot easier to show you what I'm doing. Okay, whilst I've got it in the vise again this way, let's remove that centre pinhole with the fret saw. Again, down as far as I dare. Get it turned, check the back, you're not breaching the shoulder, and cut. There we go. Now we need to be very careful again now that we don't mark the inlay. The inside's not too bad this side, but this side's got to be clean. I'd rather get it with a chisel. Don't do that, it'll bend your saw. Be careful, like I said, I don't want to cut into this inlay. It'll make a mark and I can't hide that. I'd rather clean that out with the chisel, like I said. And that's actually the point we're at. Please clean up everything. Yeah. Okay, there's our mark. We've just got to trust our markings, don't go past them. It's that simple. Nice and simple. And remember now, the grain is going this way. So actually this is almost pairing, whatever you want to call it. So it's going to act differently than it did the first time, because the first time it's end grain. On the walnut was end grain, but this time end grain's going that way. So this is going to behave differently. You need to remember that. Again, look how I'm holding the chisel, not worrying about holding it all the way up here on the handle. Cinch it right up. You have a lot of control and you won't end up hurting yourself. Just going to highlight that line, that shoulder line. There we go. Again, because the grain is going this way, the way we cleaned up the pins, the tails the first time by chiseling this way and raising our chisel up, that is effectively what we can do here. Follow our lines, our shoulder lines. And there we go. A little bit there. That is, I think, it's there. Good. Right. I do need to still clean up the top here though. Should we do that now? No, I'll do that one. I'll do them all together. Let's swatch a slightly smaller chisel. Just clean up the back here. I want to clean up the back, but I don't want to touch the front. So by using a smaller chisel, I'm not risking it. Okay, for now that's okay. Let's swap that round. Oh no, I was doing it like this, wasn't I? Let's do the dovetail. all I'm trying to do, because I have actually cut quite parallel with my line, so all I really want to do, clean it up that way. Yeah, let's leave those alone for now. Bigger one for now. Just going to go into the line, because I've cut pretty close to it. So I'm in, make sure we're focused, and twisting, following that line. Got a little bit of tear out there, look. I'll clean that up at the end. Okay, let's deal with this shoulder now. We'll do that the same way as we did before. Out of the vise with a chisel. So I need the smaller chisel now. Is that going to fit? No, that's going to be too big, so I'm actually going to have to use the Veritas chisel for this. This is something you need to plan for. It's all very well having tiny pins, but do you have a chisel that will be able to get in there and clean it out down to the shoulder? At this stage, if your sawing really isn't as consistent, which mine isn't either, then this is something you've got to think about. If you haven't got a chisel to get in there and clean it up, then you can't do it, can you? This is close to not being usable either. I just don't want to have to go and sharpen another chisel, if I'm honest. It'll just be okay. We have to remember again, we're not going with the grain now. We're paring, so we have to be careful. If we go too low here, it's going to be a massive gap in our joint. So we take our time, work our way back to the line. If we were doing this with this chisel that I've got here, the Japanese one, again, I've talked about this bevel height, we were trying to force that in, that it would just be squaring off the insides of these dovetail corners. If I push this chisel in, Veritas one, yeah, it's fitting completely in the bevel, so those corners will be nice and clean. It's really important. We are cleaning out this shoulder, these inside of these dovetails. Let's get you focused, and we're going to clean up these outside dovetails as well. Okay, I'm going to primarily work from this side in, because this is the only side that's going to be visible. So first things first, let's clear all that waste out of there. Okay, now see, that doesn't actually, it really does just fit. So I've got to be really careful. The first one, the other side will be a bit easier because I've already made the space here. But this, like I said, this is something you've got to take into consideration when you're choosing the spacing of your dovetails, because unless you're a pro with a handsaw, you're going to need to get in there. What we're trying to make sure we're ending up with is a parallel inlay. That's it. We've done that one, have we? Let's turn it over. And we do the same again. I did cut quite close to these lines actually, so let's get that in, get the right angle and slice to the side, keeping an eye on the line this side. Oh, I've got to be careful, look. Really careful. Shouldn't have. Oh, for goodness sake. Might get away with that. Ooh, got to be careful. Nil. Come on. better than this. Okay, taking a bit too much material, look. It's going to be hard to hide, but let's just go gentle. That's done. Sorry, this corner here. Okay. Need to be careful. I don't want to bruise the inside of this corner either, so let's just swap over to this chisel. Let's see, get it cleaned up there. Okay. Right, one more quick clean up, and then we're ready to mark up our pins again. Remember? Cleaning up right into those corners. We want to make sure they're really clean. Slight undercut there if we want to. Just make sure it sits home properly when we glue it up. Clean up the insides. Get right into those corners. Really important. Remember, this edge is, these profiles are the ones you're going to use for marking out your pins. They need to be sharp and they need to be accurate. Right, okay. Let's mark out our pins again. So when we're actually lining this up now, the thickness of this is still the same as the original walnut, but we've got this inlay, yeah? So we need to do a rebate in here. The thickness of the width of the wood, but the depth here needs to be the same as this depth there. It'll become more obvious once I've done it. So first things first, we need to make sure that's still the same, which it is. We can now use that to mark out on that. Trust me. Look at my arrows, it's this end I need to do. Hang on. Yep, don't mark it that way, that's wrong. We need to remember we're marking from the front to the back, not the back to the front. You with me? I'm sure it will become obvious in a second. Do I do it all the way across? Yes, I do. Gentle one first. Bit harder. Oh, careful. Okay, now because it's going this way, it's still the same thickness. Okay, so we've drawn that. Let's just get these continued down the side a little bit. What we can do is also use our other marking gauge to set that up. The true thickness. Now what I may do here, is make this shoulder slightly deeper down, because what that'll end up doing is making the pins poke out of the dovetails at the end, and if there's any cleanup, it'll just give us a little bit of wiggle room. So we want to get the thickness of this, and I'm probably going to give it a little bit more. So hang on for good. Oh, come on, hands, work. There we go. There's that. Let's lock that one off. Yeah, that's locked off. Now we can use the fine adjustment on this to give it a bit more. Now, where are we? Oh, I've done it on the end of mine, that's right. So now we need to mark here, not the big bit, the small bit. Yeah, it's the back, remember, and this is the rebate. If you go all the way across here now, that's going to show at the end, and you don't want that. Okay, just finish off these, and we'll mark our waist again. And it's walnut, so we mark our waist with the chalk pencil. Okay. Rebating again. Making sure you're getting that full width of cut. Right, still nice and even. Keep going. Take your time to set up your tool. Set it up properly. Don't rush. With the plane as well, don't rush. You don't need to follow and look like you see people on the internet planing away at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But sometimes a little bit of precision is needed. Okay, approaching that line. Be careful now. Okay, that's better. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Happy with that shoulder this time as well, actually. Okay, closer. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Pretty happy with that. Okay, so there's our rebate. And now, hopefully, that becomes a bit more obvious of why we've done the rebates. Yeah. Okay, let's get this transferred over onto there. Got to be a bit more careful this time because we don't have the ridge that we had last time, so things aren't going to line up as easy. We've got to take a bit more time to make sure we're straight. Right. So this is in the vise again. Low down, rebates on the inside. That's really important. Rebates on the inside. And these are my reference edges this time, so I need to. What am I going to use to do that? Now we're coming over the top. But what we really need to do is make sure we're in line this way. And make sure there's no gaps. Take your time, really take your time here lining this up. There are jigs you can make, but like I said during this, we're not doing any jigs, we're doing everything by hand. Also, we'll have a little check. Like I said, I've done this so that things are overhanging slightly, so that I can clean up at the end. Yeah, that feels good. The gap looks even. So marking out, we're just keeping a firm hold here now. What we can't allow is this to move whilst we're marking out. Otherwise we're going to have issues. So I'm just doing some gentle lines first, just to make sure I get them in. Remember, we're going into the gap at 45 degrees to make sure that knife edge gets right in there and gives us an accurate mark. There's no point marking, like I've said, if it's not accurate. Really be careful not to allow this to move. You see what I'm doing there? I've gone wrong. I've just seen what I've done. These are the wrong way up. Right, that's lucky. Really lucky I've just seen that. If this was a perfect world, these will all be perfectly square, but the chances are they're not. So let's, oh wow, that was a close one. Let's spend time again marking this up. It'll be interesting actually to see how hard it is to mark now, because I've already put score marks into that end grain. And arguably I could take it back to the shooting board and do a fresh end, but I can't be bothered. Just want to get this. Okay. Right, let's try again. Yeah, so these lines aren't going to mark, these marks aren't going to line up. Give myself a bit of an issue, but like I said, because these are going to be protruding through the top slightly when it's finished, there'll be room to plane these marks off. I just need to make sure when I cut to the right marks. There's going to be two lots now. You see how late I noticed that? Be really careful. Okay, so it's all the marks to the left. I need to be careful now. So it's that one, that one. That was the same. Is this one closer in? Okay, that was nearly disastrous. Now we need to carry on this shoulder all around, and the marking gauge is still set up for that, so let's get on with that now. Remember, pick the right marking gauge. Now remembering, the only areas we need to mark the shoulder is in between the pins. Yeah. Otherwise we're going to have to remove material to get rid of the scratches. So all I'm going to do, like I did last time, is do some markings to give myself a reference point for when I do my marking down. Double check. Yep. Light scores, just for now. Remember, we're not going around the ends for the pins. Okay, so now I need to remember, I've got to remember I'm going to the right marking because of my lane. When I was just marking out just then, I got it wrong. We're not perfect. I need to do the back, but we just need to finish off those shoulder lines. Make sure I've got the right one. Yep. That now should give us a clear line to work to. Let's get that good deep score. And mark your waist. The last thing you want now is confusion. Okay, this is just a practice joint, but if this was a box you were making, it would cause big issues. Okay. So just to eliminate any confusion. As before, I'm going to cut from the outside in. So if there is any breakout on the inside, it'll all be hidden, hopefully. Remembering to cut to the right side of the line, otherwise I'm going to end up with a mess. Being careful of your shoulder line here, you don't want to leave any cut marks in it. Okay, these are the ones I need to make sure I go to the correct line, otherwise I'm going to make a mess. I'm going to chisel these back. Okay, that's us done with that saw. Now, again, same thing to remember before about the pins. We've got to be careful we don't end up cutting into our pins. So, oh, come on, hand. So, turning the saw, keeping an eye on that there. As before, don't discard those. We'll use those for clamping up. The walnut is so much nicer to work with hand tools than the maple is. Okay, so I'm going to clean up with the chisel, shoulders first. then we'll come in and come back here and do these. Okay, got big shoulders here. Sorry, wide pins. So can I use that? I can actually, just to get the shoulder line, I will use this. I'm going to work it back first, and then I'll use this to get that shoulder line, just to make sure I get one complete clean line. It's handy having a chisel this wide. So let's work the material back first, same as before, holding it like a pen. Not going to go all the way first. We'll work our way back to it. Remember what I told you the first time, we've got to remember to tilt the chisel. Okay. One whack for now. Just want to establish that nice shoulder line. Okay, nice clean line there. Coming back to the smaller chisel now. Now I've got those shoulder lines. Okay. Let's go back in the vise. Coming in, we're not even touching the shoulder lines, we're just dealing in the centre here to get that down. You can tell these chisels are getting blunt now. Gently doing it, because remember this is the outside. Last thing I want to do is blast out this side and break some out. So I'm just cinching the chisel right up so I can't slip with it. I'll come round, I'll turn it around in a minute and I'll finish off that side. Okay, and also whilst I'm here, I'm going to clean up the insides of these pins. But we need to be very careful when we do this. We need to make sure, before we do it, we have a look. We see where needs material removing. So we'll start here. Now I can't see my lines actually, so I'm going to do this once I've turned it round. Come on Neil, get with it. So let's carry on with these shoulders now actually as I've turned it round. One job at a time. Remember on these shoulders, all we're doing is removing the high spots in the middle so that the dovetail can squeeze all the way down. And not get, you won't end up with gaps on the shoulders then. This will never be seen. Should we call it a glue gap, shall we? Okay. That's those shoulders on. Let's come back round here again. Let's test this again. So that to line up. Start this end. Let's take this one back. So as we did before, chisel in your knife mark, watching over here, rotating the chisel, following your line across the top. Yeah. Just a smaller chisel. Come in. Try it again. Again, don't adjust all your pins at the same time. It's disastrous, I promise. Yeah, let's trim this one back, definitely. Same method, in your line, gently hold it like so, you can rotate the chisel up. It's important that this is perpendicular to the shoulder. You should get the same result as I said before. If it's any kind of a wedge shape, you really stand a risk of splitting it. Try it. It's the outer line on this one. This wouldn't have been so much of a challenge if I'd actually taken time before I did the marking out of the pins. So again, it's just another reason, don't rush. The minute you start rushing, you're going to mess the work up or you're going to hurt yourself. I've been both. Check again. Yes, definitely this one. Line it up, rotate the chisel. And hopefully I've just made a load of gaps. Right, try again. Right, it's going to start going now, isn't it? So where do we need to trim? I think it's a bit tight on there. Let's do that one again first. What you can look, see where it's bruising the wood. It's actually bruising the wood here, so I'm going to do this one first. But I'm going to use a smaller chisel. Don't use the full-size chisel. If you do that, we know that these front edges and this top edge are good. We don't want to touch that. So we're just going to come on the inside, and I can actually see where I need to remove the material actually. And it's never going to be seen. There we go. Okay, clean up your corners. Needs to clean up the inside of this shoulder, I think. As you can see, can you see? There. Starting to dig it up. So I'm going to clean that. Just clean it off camera so I don't have to take this out. Try again. Okay, that's going to be good. That can be glued. Again, I'm not worried about squeeze out here. If this was a box, I'd have protected all the inside corners, but being just an example, there's no need. Just get loads of glue in there. Now, this is obviously going to start swelling these joints as soon as possible, so because it's just one joint we're gluing up, it's not really an issue, but if this was a box, you need to get on with this. Type on 2. You've got a bit of time. It's probably a bit overkill, but like I said, I'm not too worried about squeeze out. Shakes today. Come on. Right, let's do this. Let's get this in. Give that a wipe on the back. Already test fitted it, so we know it should go. Let's see if we can get that nice satisfying squeeze out we're looking for. Give it a wipe, then we'll get the clamps on it. Just wipe that excess off for now. So we're good that way. We want to clamp down, so we're going to put those as our clamping pieces. Let's do them up. Look at that, nice bit of squeeze out. Just what I wanted to see. Okay, so this has been gluing for a couple of hours. What I said before was that I had cut this shoulder line deeper so that I would end up with some pins protruding. That's exactly what I've got. The reason I've done that is, imagine you've got this far, you've been doing an entire box, you got this far, and you had a gap. I don't know about you, but I'd want the opportunity to try and fix that. So if they're slightly protruding, now I didn't invent this method. This is where your ball peen hammer comes in handy. And by strike, you can put a squirt of glue down your gap, and then by striking the ball peen at the end, you can actually, because this is end grain, you can actually spread it out. You can fill your gap up. Hack, cheat, whatever you want to call it, it works. But now what we need to do is trim this back flush. So I intend to use, again, skew block plane. It's end grain, it's a skew blade, makes it easier. Any plane you've got will do this. Low angle jack plane would be quite handy on the end grain. Any low angle blades would be good on the end grain, but plane of your choice. You could just sand it. You could just sand it the whole way back, but I've got planes, I like to use them. So that's the next job in the vise. What I am going to do is close this throat up a little bit, make it a bit more of a finer cut. If you know that about planes, if you've got an adjustable throat, the wider the throat, the more chunkier planing you can do. If you want a fine plane, close that gap up as much as you can. It'll give you a nice fine plane, as long as the blade's not protruding too much, of course. Okay, right. Let's turn it over. Let's do the other side. Now this really doesn't need any work really. Although I can see I've got a little gap. Bit annoying, but not perfect. I'll back this off a little bit actually. It was a little bit aggressive. There we go, just a little bit. That's better. Almost there. Look. I'm going to sand this. Just come across one more time. Okay. Really nice actually. Look, I've got got a bit of a gap there. Tiny there. Look, nothing's perfect. This is just me being fussy. Okay, you can sand this, get a nice finish. I've got this hooked up to the extractor. I know I said no completely hand tools, but I'm sorry. If you're sanding like this, you should have an extractor of some kind. You really should. I'm going to turn that on, so it's going to be noisy, I'm afraid. Where's my defenders? Oh, yeah. Sucks through. Because I planed, I'm going straight on at 240. Okay, what's that? Sorry. Yep, here's the gap. Look. This was an actual piece, I could be filling that with wax. Not worried. Right. Like I said, I'm not going to apologise for using an extractor. I know this is hand tools, but I'm not choking myself up and damaging my lungs. Right. Also, I need to get this dust out of here. That's been sanded to 320 and I've blown all of the dust out of the grain. Now for a finish to put on it, I'm going to use walnut oil. This one's from Workshop Heaven, no sponsors or anything, but it's for walnut. Walnut oil is amazing, looks fantastic. So let's put some of that on now. So first, I've never used it on walnut, trust me, it's fantastic. Okay. End grain, lots in the end grain. Alright, now for the best bit. Let's get a plentiful on there. Right, leave that 20 minutes or so soak in, and then we'll just wipe off the excess. Okay, so there we have it. These ones are just cut today. Not as good as the ones I did the other day, but I could hope you can see the difference. How this style, as nice as it is, really like it. This style is a lot more complex than this style. You've got to do rebates. There's a lot more that you've actually got to do to achieve this. And I personally, I like how the inlay just profiles the dovetail. So here we go. I know it's been a long video. Thank you so much if you've watched this far. If you have watched this far, I'd like to do a bit of experiment. If you could type in the comments rebate, rabbit, if you're from across the pond, just gives me an idea of how long people are actually watching for. That'd be really appreciated. If you have found it useful, hitting that like button, that'd be really appreciated. And obviously subscriptions. If you're not there, that'd be really appreciated if you press that button. If you want me to do more videos like this, tell me in the comments and I'll see what I can do. But until then, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.